Good evening, guys. It's Saturday night. It's Pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. And as David Hunter has already pointed out, we are getting our asses handed to us by the algorithm. So please smash that like button if you haven't already. Please share the stream if you can. And let's try to get this out there to as many people as possible. We know we've got a lot. Yes, I have accepted the fact that my hair apparently looks purple, according to whatever this lighting is. I don't know what color it is, but yes, Saul, we know you're here and we appreciate you being here, but it doesn't do us any good if we do not put all of our efforts into making sure this gets out to as many people as we can. So I am going to write this out there, make sure everybody knows it. Smash that like button. That's all we ask. We don't ask for a lot, but this much we ask for. So if you can, let's make it a collective effort to make sure we get it out there to as many people as we can. It is Saturday night. We know that some people may be doing their thing. Totally get it. But, usually our nights are a little bit stronger. So we'll see what tonight brings. That's what it's all about. And so where I want to start is on a story that is not getting any attention. And I do mean no attention. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with Gary, Indiana. For those who know it kind of on a casual basis. Gary, Indiana is the home or the hometown of Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. But Gary, Indiana is also a town that has been decimated by, we'll just say, the collapsing empire of capitalism. And evidently, the community has been without power and resources for weeks. This is an example of what happens when you live on the wrong side of town, and how a professional basketball player from Indiana decided to make it his mission to address this problem with mutual aid, which apparently is helping a great deal at this point because the government, of course, is doing nothing. So here we go.
Coming out here, though, it's obvious, it's obvious. Gary is full of, us, diversity. Yeah. Not really diversity, but it's full of black people. Yeah. We the blackest city out here, so they don't want to check on us.
They're NIPSCO. Everybody pays them. We don't pay, we get cut off. But when disaster happens, they want to charge us X amount of dollars, but we already paying into this. They got billions, trillions of dollars. We working day to day on paychecks. So yes, they could have did better. They got the money. We don't got the money. They say they supposed to maintenance that yearly. They haven't been out here in a year or two, maybe 3 years. I can't sleep at night because I can't plug my sleep apnea machine up. I can't afford a generator. I'm working on a month salary. So therefore, we need them to either give us generators or get this power up and running. We got a 91-year-old man that lived at the end, almost at the end of the thing. They had to rush him to the hospital. We had an elder lady across the street. She had medical condition. She bedridden. People come out to help her also. So we really need them to work more faster because we don't want to lose no lives if we don't have to.
The irony of driving through a community that has endless amounts of rainfall. Again, who heard about this? Who heard about the major storm? Who heard about the fact that they've been without power? Again, Gary, Indiana. This is a community that is predominantly black. It has a lot of issues with crime, poverty, and as a result, it's a forgotten piece of America. Even though Gary, Indiana is an historically important city, and what's even more interesting is how close Gary, Indiana is to Chicago. It's very close. You would think that with all the money and resources that Chicago has, that perhaps a helping hand might have been possible, but it's not. And as has been pointed out, it's East Palestine, it's Flint, it's all these forgotten communities, Jackson, Mississippi. We've seen this many, many times, and it's not going to stop. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the reason that they are where they are is specifically because they're black, but the biggest indicator is whether or not the area is worth anything economically to the system. Gary, Indiana is a city that is not regarded as of anything of value for, capitalism, if you will. It's just a working class downtrodden community that's been taking it on the chin for a very long time. And because of that, they're now faced with the reality that all that infrastructure that's been decimated by the storm, it doesn't matter. They could be sitting there for months. Shout out to Breakthrough News for giving them the attention it desperately needs. We will do the same. And we hope that people will spread the word. Use your platform to try to enact the type of positive change that is absolutely necessary. And of course, if you've ever been through rural America, which I have, this is not the only community. This just happens to be one right now that is decimated with their infrastructure being completely torn apart. And this is going on weeks now. If this was your community, would you sit on your hands and just accept it? I doubt it.
Our governor needs to get his butt out here.
You see, that's the problem. They don't regard you as human. They regard you as subhuman. You're just a cog in the machine. And if you do not have any more use, then we just don't deal with you. Fend for yourself. Survive if you can. And if you can't, that's not our problem. And that effectively is their mindset. That is effectively what they're anticipating. They don't ask questions and they don't want to know from nothing. They would rather you just disappear. And as sad as that is, sad as that reality has become, let's remember that there are good people out there that are trying to make this a better situation than it currently is.
Gary, Indiana has been without power for the last 9 days and nobody was talking about it, and I thought it was crazy, so I made a video and got willingly people talking about it. With that being said, we got an announcement. We are teaming up with not only the Salvation Army, but the city of Gary, Indiana to throw an event Monday. The exact location and time will be shared on my story when we get close. But for now, I can tell y'all what we're gonna have at the event. So my family and Salvation Army will both be bringing trucks full of supplies. And it's not only just my family and the Salvation Army. Tyrese Haliburton found out what we was doing, and he matching our contribution. God is amazing. So we're gonna have supplies. We're gonna have a DJ that's provided directly by the city of Gary. And I got over 1,000 messages of restaurants and food trucks and people who sell food that want to get involved. So
you know, this is often the argument against any type of government, because what is the point of having a government if they can't help you in an emergency situation like this? Why do you have to rely on individual citizens to basically do the job that the government is supposed to be paid to do? Tyrese Haliburton? Tyrese Haliburton is the star guard on the Indiana Pacers. Kudos to him for stepping up. I hope other people will do the same. You know, this is the type of situation where, you know, this is what FEMA is supposed to be for. And you could say all you want about, well, they cut FEMA. Yeah, but you know what? There's always emergency situations. There's always ways to get resources out there if they need to. The idea that, you know, that nothing is being done, it isn't being done for a reason. It isn't being done because these people don't matter. That's all. As I said, when we had the last bad hurricane in Florida, Sanibel Island's bridge was destroyed. Governor DeSantis had that bridge fixed in 3 days. when they're motivated to do something, because again, Sanibel Island is a major economic driver in the state of Florida, they get to work like that. But a place like Gary, Indiana, that's not an economic driver. So they don't care. And that's pretty much it.
We're going to open it up for everybody who want to contribute. So if you are a food truck or a restaurant that would like to contribute, you can reach out to this email and we can coordinate it. And also, if you want to contribute and send supplies, which again, I had over 1,000 people that say they want to do it, you can send it to this address. And if you want to volunteer with us, you can go to this website. thesalvationarmy.org, and you can sign up to be a volunteer. And I know it's not turning the power on, but it is a place for
all right, one more
people
time.
that say they want to do it. You can.
All right, guys. So there it is. City Life Center, 225 West 5th Avenue, Gary, Indiana. Anybody who's in Detroit, anybody who's in Chicago, anybody who's in Saginaw, trying to think of the surrounding, Indianapolis, any of the surrounding areas, if you have the opportunity to get out there. You know, obviously this is an opportunity to do some real on the ground help. And when we talk about mutual aid, this is what we mean. If you cannot rely on the government to help, if the government can't be there to help, then we have to help ourselves. This is a libertarian's wet dream in many ways, but this is what we need to do. So if you can help, this is a great place to start.
Send it to this address. And if you want to volunteer with us, you can go to this website, thesalvationarmy.org, and you can sign up to be a volunteer. And I know it's not turning the power on, but it is a place for community. If you want some supplies or you need some supplies, come get some. If you want some food or you need some food, come get some. If you want to listen to some music or you need that sense of people being around you, come get some. And I'm going to continue to talk about it because I think this should be a national conversation, and it's insane to me that it's not. So until it is, y'all gonna hear me. God is amazing. I'll see you on Monday. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Y'all be safe. Again, it wouldn't be possible without y'all. It wouldn't be possible without the people who are willing to join the efforts with us, and I'll see y'all.
Well, to Keith Lee, thank you for all the great work that you're doing. Obviously, we are going to highlight this as much as possible. And of course, a big shout out again to Tyrese Haliburton, professional basketball player who is matching every donation that comes in on behalf of this relief effort for Gary, Indiana. You know, I went through a similar situation during Hurricane Sandy when I was still living in New Jersey. We were without power. I mean, obviously, Hurricane Sandy is a whole other animal. I mean, that was as powerful a hurricane as you can imagine, blew out grids. We had to leave. We had to go and stay in Philadelphia. So that wasn't fun. But, you know, you do what you have to do. And of course, this was right around Thanksgiving. So it was a very late hurricane as well. So it was getting cold. And being without power, it's one thing if it happens in the summertime. Imagine how much worse this would be if, you know, we're talking about northern Indiana. Imagine how much worse this would be if this was mid to late in November. You know, 3 months from now could be devastatingly cold. You talk about losing people, this is how it would happen. They're fortunate that this happened now, because at least in the summer heat, you're not going to freeze to death. So anyone who can help, please do. And that's what we do. You know, we use our platform to try to help as many people as we can. And this is an example. You know, when I go through the process of determining what are the stories that we're going to hit on tonight, you know, where are we going to go? What are the things that really matter? It's never an easy decision when you have so many different crazy stories going on at any one time. There is never a shortage of various stories that go on at any one moment. You know, we are very cognizant of that reality. And I know sometimes people will put suggestions into the chat about what we should be talking about. And I totally get it. I want to be able to hit on as many of these key stories as possible. I don't want us to not be able to talk about them. And that's why if we can address it, we will. And right now, I want to transition to what I think is a pivotal story, because it is the weekend, and I contemplated as I spoke with Jen earlier, whether we were going to do it today or we would wait till Monday. There is a key story we're going to wait till Monday to talk about regarding John Ossoff and Angie Nixon. But today, and it's amazing how much of the worst things typically happen over the weekend. I'm not 100% sure why that is the case, but here and in tonight, we know that we are drawing ever so much closer to additional warfare expansion, dare I say even world war level expansion. We know the issues happening in South America as we speak. But now we're about to see the devastating reality about what's happening in West Asia. And the fact that the saber rattling between the United States in conjunction with Israel against Turkey is becoming feverishly dangerous at this point. And so I came across this very interesting tutorial video to kind of capture more or less what we're dealing with in this instance, why this is so significant, and why the Greater Israel Project is ultimately how we've been led to this point.
And on land, they are also not too far. Look here, it is Syria. Turkey and Israel are rapidly growing their military influence in Syria. Turkey maintains a large military presence in northern Syria, while Israel present in parts of southern Syria. In recent months, tensions between the two are rapidly increasing.
This is the final warning for you.
Turkey is threatening Israel for its actions, and Israel is calling Turkey a second Iran. But in reality, Israel fears Turkey even more than Iran. Well, Turkey is much more powerful than Iran. It's NATO's member and even has NATO's second largest army after the United States.
Now, one of the more interesting developments that's happening right now, nothing is official, but it's something to keep in mind. The United States and Trump's infinite wisdom are strongly contemplating leaving NATO. Now, one would ask themselves, why would they leave NATO? What would be the motivation at this point for the U.S. to leave NATO? The cover story has been that the United States is frustrated with a large portion of nations, particularly in Europe, that will not engage in warfare against Iran on behalf of Israel and the U.S. So that's what they're saying. That's not necessarily the reason. The real reason, which I'm being told, is because Turkey is in NATO. And Israel cannot attack a country in NATO without the U.S. responding. So the U.S. is planning to leave NATO so that Turkey can be attacked by Israel. That's what we're being sold. I'll believe it when I see it. But if it does happen, to me, that would be the primary reason.
It controls the Bosphorus Strait and has access to both the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea.
Now, listen to this part one more time. Very important here. Remember, everything always gets back to economics.
And even has NATO's second largest army after the United States. It controls the Bosphorus Strait.
And there it is. What the U.S. and Israel are discovering right now is that the Strait of Hormuz, which covers about, I guess, 20 to 25% of the oil trafficking that goes on. But the Bosphorus Strait, I don't know the exact percentage. Maybe somebody in the chat can let us know. That in itself is a major development. Now Israel is getting closed off from all directions. If there is a major reason why there would be any type of combat engagement between Israel and Turkey. Remember, Turkey always plays both sides. They've managed to stay out of the fray for a very long time. But now it looks like they're not going to be able to stay out of it anymore. Now it looks like they're getting reeled in. Erdogan has been expressing his thoughts regarding Netanyahu as a war criminal. That doesn't go over very well, and we'll get to Netanyahu in a minute. But this is, again, another great example of what ultimately ends up happening when the water becomes even safer for others to get into when the Israel question is on the table. At the beginning, it wasn't a safe question to ask. Most people may have had a very strong opinion about them, but they were not willing in any way to get involved in the middle of this. If Turkey gets involved, that could be lights out for Israel. How are they going to fight a two-front against Turkey and Iran unless the U.S. is planning on getting involved? Could you imagine, in light of everything that we've experienced to this moment that we're in right now, could you even imagine the prospect of the U.S. military going to war on behalf of Israel? I mean, like I said, every day brings us a step closer to an actual revolution. And situations like this is how it happens. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, everything is always based on money and power. If another economic strait, which is the Bosphorus Strait in the western part of Turkey, if that's closed off for economic usage between the U.S. and Israel, what do you expect is going to happen? Jen likes to say that if everything you have is a hammer, if all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And if all we have is a military, well, everything looks like a warfare opportunity, and this could be it. But Turkey, this is maybe the most powerful military on earth besides ours. I go back and forth between where I think World War III is going to start. I still think it's very possible it could happen in South America. But if you get Turkey involved militarily, there's no coming back. There won't be this soft fight. Istanbul sits basically in the crux of everything economically in the world. Or as some people have been saying, Constantinople, which is what it originally was, and maybe in many people's eyes still is. There's a little bit more here.
And has access to both the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Unlike Iran, Turkey has one of the strongest navies in the region too, with submarines, frigates, and even an aircraft carrier, which can easily block Israel's maritime route. Turkey also produces its own state-of-the-art drones like Bayraktar TB2 and Akinci. Just days ago, Turkey signed a new joint defense agreement with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, which says that an attack on one means an attack on all three have to respect.
Now, why is this important? A couple of reasons. Pakistan is nuclear capable, and Saudi Arabia is getting absolutely decimated by Iran. So it's one big chessboard, and there's no telling how these pieces are going to fall. But one domino begets another domino. And all the while in the middle, you have Israel, and they're being led by absolute psychopaths. Netanyahu has his opinion about Erdogan and Turkey, as if he hasn't saber-rattled enough. But remember, Turkey does not want any part of the Greater Israel Project. They protect Syria. And Syria is as significant of a landmass that Israel desires on their border expansion.
don't.
המסר עבר?
המסר עבר, אבל אנחנו לא נסבול התבססות צבאית טורקית שיורדת דרומה, כי היא מאיימת עלינו. את זה העברנו באופן כללי. עכשיו אנחנו...
The thing I always find interesting when they speak, or when this devil speaks, he speaks in terms as if the Israeli army, the Israeli military, is all world, is benevolent, and can do whatever it wants. No. In reality, what he's doing is being a mouthpiece for the United States. That's even worse. He talks in terms of how business will be conducted. Israel and Turkey, is there really any comparison militarily between the two nations? Not really. But you add the United States into the equation, well, then you do have something to talk about. And that is why when Netanyahu is speaking, I often wonder, Is he really speaking on behalf of the U.S. State Department? And oftentimes I don't see how he's not. And I would imagine at this point, most people would probably agree. His disposition is the United States is under our thumb because the people who truly own and operate the United States, they're one of us. We're one and the same. That's going to be a direct connection to Van Jones and Larry Ellison, which we will get to shortly. But remember, they don't care. They have no concern whatsoever because in their mind, their people are the ones who aren't going to suffer. Ours are. That's why they gleefully speak in these terms. Oh, we're not totally going to stop Erdogan and his people. Sure you are. Sure you are. Because unfortunately, we are a captured nation by the Zionist cause for now. Hopefully not for much longer, but for now, they're dictating the terms of the fate of our nation. He's got a little more to say.
ראינו שיש כוונה של טורקיה להתבסס בשדה תעופה דרומית לקו שלה, קרוב לחלב, והעברנו מסר. איך אגדיר לך את המסר? Don't.
המסר עבר?
המסר עבר, אבל כנראה שלא לא שמעו אותו, אז דאגנו שיבינו אותו בצורה יותר טובה.
When you start speaking in these terms, when you start saying things like, we made sure they understood it better, what exactly do you think he's referring to? They assume that if they attack, that we will be behind them. You know, I had a conversation with Jen earlier about the similarities in so many ways about the broken economic system that we have in this country when it comes to the interstate highway system and NATO. The interstate highway system that was passed under the Eisenhower administration in 1953, I believe, or 54, somewhere around there. The toll plazas that we see in this country, every one of them was constructed specifically for the purpose of paying for the toll roads. That's it. Once they were paid for, they were supposed to be removed. But in the 1970s, even the 1960s, they figured out, oh, wait a minute. We don't have to get rid of these. This is a cash machine. We'll keep them. And no greater greed of that is in my home state of New Jersey. Do you know that the Port Authority in New York, New Jersey, do you know that only New Jersey makes you pay? New York doesn't. Very interesting. I didn't know that, but I learned it. I am from the Soprano state, after all. And how does this translate into NATO? Well, NATO was supposed to be a direct response to the Soviet Union and what effectively was the beginning of the Cold War in the late 1940s, particularly starting around 1949. And the Truman administration enacted NATO. And once the Soviet Union fell, that was supposed to be the end of NATO. But NATO, in its purest form, is ostensibly the military-industrial complex on a global scale. So the idea that Trump is now going to get the U.S. out of NATO in this moment, just for Israel to start a war with Turkey, we are not exactly being run by the most intelligent of individuals. We know that now. But I also believe there's a lot of people in positions of authority that do not care if the destruction and decimation of a substantial portion of the global population is taken out. Why would they care? This is exactly why no one gives a shit about what's going on in Gary, Indiana, and that's on the micro level. On the macro level, as you can see here, flippantly talking about attacking and antagonizing Erdogan and the Turkish people, that's not smart. It's not. And Erdogan is somebody who is kind of a shyster in many ways. He plays all sides. He has no real loyalty other than to the people of Turkey. But now what you're seeing is Israel is not going to stop in their pursuit of their greater Israel project. And now it's directly affecting Turkey and their economic interests. So naturally, they have to respond, and they will. The big issue here is going to be, what are we going to do? What is the United States going to do? And what are we going to allow our compromised president and administration to do to us to satisfy this bloodlust that this Zionist ideology has over all of us? There is no question that as this story unfolds, and it's always interesting how they always seem to have these very interesting caveats drop on the weekends. They assume nobody's paying attention, but we are. Oh, we're paying attention, all right, and we know how dangerous this can get. So saber rattling with Turkey, not wise. And of course, being that it is Netanyahu, and it is what these people have kind of set out to do, they are going to put us in such a bind, and we know that they will. We've been highlighting a lot lately the type of commentary that has been coming from the leaders of the Israel cause. And as we've pointed out time and again, and guys, we have 350 people watching now. We've moved up the charts a little bit, but let's see if we can do a big number here. I'm hoping for it. So I'm relying on each and every one of you to first and foremost smash that like button. So let's get that out there if we can. Any and all help makes a tremendous difference. And communicating in the chat, that helps a lot too, believe it or not. So if you have something to say, share it. That helps too. You know, I highlighted last week Rabbi Yom Tov Glazer, I think is his name. You saw how crazy that son of a bitch was. Well, he's not the only one. In fact, we've got the man who is considered the chief rabbi of Israel, the chief rabbi. What does he have to say about all this? What does he have to say regarding not just Israel, but the Palestinian people? Oh boy, it's getting pretty rough over there.
נשארו בקדושתם והם חיללו אותם. ורק על זה לבד מגיע להם, אני אומר, שכל עזה, הקדוש ברוך הוא יחריב.
I want you to read these words because, again, in their made-up space language, they like to come up with this bullshit. The man's name is Rabbi David Yosef. Holy One, blessed be he, destroy all of Gaza. This is a person of faith saying this. Well, actually, no, let me be clear. Zionists don't believe in anything except their money and power. They desecrate everything that Judaism is supposed to stand for. And this man is no different. So when there is no distinction between Judaism and Zionism, you get this. You get this psychopathic ideology. You get a person who says, not only does he take the Lord's name in vain, but he does it for the purpose of destroying Gaza? That's what he's saying? And of course, no one within Zionism, no one within any governmental position is going to say anything against what he's saying. They didn't say anything about Ben Gvir when he said we need to be slaughtering 30 to 40 children in Gaza every single day. You think they're going to say anything to the man of the cloth? Probably not. We're going to say something about it. We are exposing them. And it is imperative that we continue to share this as far and wide as possible, because enough people are still not getting it. The people who are too far gone, fuck them. Don't worry about them. But there's still way too many people out there who haven't fully seen the light yet. We have to keep pushing.
מגיע להם, אני אומר, שכל עזה, הקדוש ברוך הוא יחריב אותה, ואנחנו נחזור לשם. אנחנו יודעים שכשתבוא הגאולה, אז תהיה גבורה כזאת של עם ישראל מול כל האומות, קל וחומר מול האספסוף הזה, שהוא לא עם, שהם קוראים לעצמם עם פלסטיני, אבל הם לא עם.
Throughout history, there has been a complete denial since 1948, probably a long time before that as well. But this whole whitewashing of Palestinian history, this is not new. This is what they've always done. And a person who is considered or is supposed to be considered part of the respectful class is saying that there is no such thing as Palestinians. It's just made up. And this white as a ghost son of a bitch would have you believe that he's native to that land too. Again, everything they talk about, everything they say is a lie. Now, the reason this becomes much more intensified, much more antagonistic, is because they know they're losing control. When you think about a spiraling tornado, when you think about what it looks like when a power vacuum starts to, well, not necessarily disintegrate in this moment, but when it starts to show cracks in the armor, when it starts to break apart, the language becomes much more incendiary. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing a total mask off type of language from these people.
הם לא עם. לא היו מעולם עם, הם לא עם, ואין להם זכויות פה. הזכויות הם שלנו. עזה זה שלנו. עזה זה שלנו, שכם שלנו, ג'נין שלנו, כולם שלנו. אז מה שאנחנו כרגע צריכים לעשות זה להתפלל אל השם יתברך, שנזכה לגאולה, שבה נוכל באמת לחזור לכל המקומות שלנו.
Look what he says. Where is it? Where is it? Come on. There it is. Wait a minute. Nablus is ours. Jenin is ours. Gaza is the land of Israel. Gaza is ours. Gaza is ours. Now that's just Gaza. What's going to happen when they say the West Bank is ours? The West Bank is ours. They said the Golan Heights was ours. Trump gave that to them too. Syria is ours. Damascus is ours. Jordan is ours. Petri is ours. Egypt is ours. Cairo is ours. Do you understand how this works? Do you understand that they're not going to stop? And if this isn't enough to convince you, this isn't enough to convince enough people that we have to do away with this ideology. If you think that there is any changing how they conduct business, how they see things, that's not changing. And it's not going to. And I say this because there has been a clip that's been circulating of former IDF soldiers who are now way late in life. You think this is a Netanyahu, Gavir, and Smotrich problem? No, it's a culture problem, and it's basically all of them.
הרגנו בהם, בלי נקיפת מצפון.
הרגת, אז עשית דבר טוב. הייתי מוכן להרוג.
אני אספר לה שאני הייתי רוצח.
עד היום רק שהייתה אקדח, אתה תהרג את כולם.
יאללה, רפו אותם כמו פרות, חליהם.
בזמן קרב, אם מישהו ירים ידיים, משהו כזה, לא לקחתי שבויים.
כמה אתה חושב אנשים הרגת ככה?
לא ספר.
How could he? Remember, a lot of times they just use these people as target practice. The irony of what they did, of the crimes they committed, and the gleefulness with which they expressed themselves about their crimes against the Palestinians. And they see it as a badge of honor that they did this. Yes, they smile. They smile, they grit their teeth. They wish they could have done more. Humanity is flawed. My late grandfather, who was a devout Catholic, was an altar boy. Near the end of his life, he told me, heaven and hell is what you make right here on this planet. If there is a hereafter, whatever you've done in this world will most likely follow you into the next one. If you choose to be as evil as Satan in this world, you will get what's coming to you in the next one. You don't get away scot-free. At some point, the karmic alignment of the universe lines up, and you will face your destiny, and it won't be good. I don't know how anybody can talk about this. And you would think at this point in their lives that they would have an ounce of remorse, but they have none. There is no remorse here. This is, I didn't do enough. I wish I killed more. I wish I made them suffer more. You think this is all they were doing? You know, when you hear the stories about the rapes on October 7th, here's where the real rapes were taking place.
לא יכול לדעת בחיי.
הוא תפס אישה, חתיכה צעירה, נכנס לבית אחד, הכין חדר מיטות, עם מיטה, פרטה לזיין אותה.
The girl came back half dead like a rag. Well, when you dehumanize somebody, who cares? Why even call them a girl? Why even call them a woman? I just call them a thing. You're coming soon, Van Jones. Don't worry. Again, the dehumanization of an entire people. And so when you hear somebody say, why do you keep talking about Palestine and Israel? Why is it that that's the only thing that you talk about? Because everything's interconnected to that. Everything. Everything that we're now seeing. The complete soul-sucking collapsing of the empire. It's not everything. Don't get me wrong. But it's a huge part of it. And we know it. And we also know that it is a major unifying issue of our time amongst many people. Under normal circumstances that would otherwise be kind of thrown aside, we now know that was once people were quiet and maybe feeling a sense of shame because they didn't speak up. This is the reality of what happens when you do not stand up to a genocidal ideology. Every accusation is a confession. Beheading babies, raping, pillaging. This is what they do. They accuse others of doing it. You know why they do that, right? So they can wipe their hands clean when they do it themselves. That's all.
אחד אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה. אתה מבין? אבל זה מכוער מאוד. היה לנו בחור אחד, הוא נפטר, הוא היה פרא אדם. הוא לקח פשוט מאוד ורצח אותם בתוך המכלאות. חוטי ברזל כאלה, עגולים כאלה, אספו כל הגברים. הם יושבים שם כולם על הרצפה, ובא מישהו ולוקח תת מקלע ומתחיל זה, מחליף מחסנית, שלקחו את הלוויורים ורדפו אחרי חבר'ה ושרפו אותם.
You see that? Now, these are guys that participated in 1967 and probably 1973. Took a flamethrower, set people on fire, incinerated them. We saw the double taps that they did to hospitals. You know, Hin Rajab's story is one of tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands. And yet here we are as Americans not doing anything. I mean, listen, are we doing something? Yeah, we're doing something. We're not doing enough. We're just not. We are not doing enough. And we need to. They're laying it all on the table for us. They rape, they pillage, they commit crimes against humanity, they kill with malice. They kill for sport. Who knows? Maybe they spirit cook them too. But we know for sure that these are, I wouldn't say deathbed confessions, but these are confessions from people who they know are never going to be brought to justice for their crimes. You can see it. These men are in their 80s, possibly even their 90s. It's amazing how long the completely depraved end up living, probably because they just don't have a care in the world. That's how you can talk about committing crimes against humanity and laughing about it. Yeah, because, well, in reality, you just don't give a shit. You're actually proud of your work. And that's the problem with psychopaths. And we have at least 4% of the human population is classified in that category. So it's in millions. Millions of them are out there. And they act like this. They think like this, and they're proud of it. I'd like to know what percentage of Israelis identify, or just Zionists in general, would be classified as psychopaths. It's probably pretty high. Certainly a lot higher than 4%.
זה היה משהו זוועתי, וזה אסור לספר, אני יכול לדבר על זה. מלחמה זה מלחמה.
War is not war. It's a genocide. And you committed it very happily. And I want to bring this full circle because some of you have probably seen this very messed up story, very messed up story that has been coming out of Gaza today. You know, the one thing, as much as it pains for me to say this, it's not that I don't care about humans. It's that I just care about animals more. It's not personal. It just happens to be one of the major sticking points that really matters to me, as I'm sure it does for many others. And in this case, when you abuse a donkey, here's what happened in one of, I think this might have been Gaza City, I'm not sure, but this is not easy to watch. So brace yourself. Now, if you're wondering what that foot tapping is that's going on there, this is a donkey that's being dragged by IOF soldiers on the back of a all-terrain vehicle for the purpose of torturing it, getting off on torturing this innocent animal. This was a Palestinian's donkey. So what did they decide to do? Not only are they going to kill it, but they're going to torture it to death in the process. I want this to sear into your brain. I don't ever want you to not look away. You have to watch it because there is going to be a point there will come a point at some point in the not too distant future where there will be tribunals and people are going to be held accountable for this. And I think somebody in the chat mentioned, how come PETA hasn't said anything about this? They're not going to. I believe PETA might actually be connected to Israel. I could be wrong about that, but I don't want to misspeak. And as you can see now, the donkey has finally given up and is now being dragged on the ground. And then these bastards get out there and finally, I believe, put it out of its misery. Do you understand what an absolute sick fuck you need to be to do something like that? It's no different than doing it to a dog. You have to understand that when we talk about bloodlust, it's not that it's not justified. It is justified. There is a reason we feel this way about people like this. We feel this way because we know what they're doing is beyond crimes against humanity. They're trying to make this type of action acceptable. They are trying to convince people that you cannot ever see it any other way. There is no such thing as indoctrination when it comes to this type of treatment. And you all know we've covered this story before. Not this one, but we did cover the Jewish holiday, made up as it is, about burning cats and dogs. There is no redeemable quality for this culture and for any people who defend it. And remember, very often, the reason this happens is because somebody else is doing the dirty work. I always tell the story of Heinrich Himmler when he went to one of the concentration camps and decided to execute a Soviet POW. He became so physically ill, he started vomiting everywhere. But he could be the architect of the final solution. That he can do because his hands ain't getting dirty. Somebody else has to do the dirty work. That's why Zios are so giddy about this type of behavior. It's because they just have somebody else go and do it for them. They don't think for a second about this. I choose my words very carefully because there's a lot that I'd like to say. But if I was armed, I don't know how I would not be able to confront them. I don't know how anybody lives in that moment and just decides to look the other way. I don't know. I know I can. And it hurts a lot. There is a special place in hell, whether on earth or beyond, for those that go along with this. There really is. And if there is one person who deserves to go with them, wherever that may be, it is Van Jones. I don't know, Kate. I would imagine it would upset her based on what she's seeing. Remember, Jews are not a monolith. Blacks are not a monolith. Hispanics are not a monolith. Whites are not a monolith, despite what certain overwoke and shit livery type politics would have you believe. No, we're all human. We're all uniquely different. And the Israelis, Zios, they're very uniquely different in the worst kind of way. There is nothing redeemable, as I said, about their ideology. This is just more proof that we cannot and must not accept this behavior. We must speak up and out against all of it. It is unforgivable, much less unforgettable. And if there is a person who deserves all the smoke for what he's done to sell out his own people and the American people for his own personal benefit, it's Van Jones.
Not happen. This also didn't happen. I'm here with Van Jones.
We now have this world where when you see something on social media, you have to ask yourself the question, is this real? The people who want to divide, who want to distract, who want to turn people against each other, have super weapons to do so now.
Whatever super weapons he's talking about, he is being completely dishonest and has been dishonest for years now. And Van Jones is somebody who evidently has made a hell of a lot of money. And we're going to explain how in a minute. But just kind of take it all in. Jen and I have talked about the impact that this person that he's standing next to, Noah Tishby, and we've talked about her, you know, she has interviewed countless Americans, Jewish or not, that have all given in to the Zionist cause. She's what I call a more refined version of Lizzie Savetsky. Now, why is it that Noah Tishby shows up in all of these propaganda videos? It's because Noah Tishby is just like Rabbi Shmuley. She's an AIPAC handler. And we have to stop saying AIPAC because it's not really what it is. She's an Israel lobby handler. That would not surprise me at all. You know, guys, if you think about it, one of the more common stories, if you really look back on the heydays of Hollywood, And we're talking 90s, 2000s, like in that era. You know what you'll discover? You'll look back and you will see very famous stars being braggadocious about being Jewish or marrying Jewish, converting to Jewish. Why? Because it's good for their career. Van Jones is a good little puppy dog because it's great for his career. And you will see why, because there's even more to this. But here we go.
Jones.
We now have this world where when you see something on social media, you have to ask yourself the question, is this real? The people who want to divide, who want to distract, who want to turn people against each other have super weapons to do so now.
Right.
Because, somebody looks at their phone, they assume that what they're seeing is real. I think that's why we have to take a lot more seriously this information war. There's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week battle for the mind. It's the people who are on Twitch and TikTok and all these other platforms that are getting literally millions and millions of views. And if you care about facts, you're disadvantaged. Even though the fringe media is terrible, you have legacy media that's also terrible and falling for nonsense.
Right.
For instance, the picture that broke everybody's heart of the so-called starving baby turned out to not be a starving child. They cut out the full image.
Now, this is where things get very, very volatile. He is addressing what could be true. I'm not here to tell you that there isn't the possibility that there was a photograph that could have been AI, and we just didn't know it. But you are overlooking the hundreds of thousands of Palestinian children that have been massacred to highlight one specific photograph that is AI. That's what you're doing? That's the pin you want to dance on? All right. I mean, that is beyond the pale. That's a person who has no moral compass. But Jen has also suggested, and rightfully so, that it is very likely that Van Jones has a lot of skeletons in his closet. And we have often suggested that people who get to the levels in politics that they get to, where they start getting opportunities that don't make much sense, kind of like Nick Shirley, something's going on there. And then we discovered the photo of Nick Shirley with Mr. Nutlick, hence he licks nuts. What is Van Jones into? Who has he been breaking bread with that we don't know about? What has he done? It's not good. Definitely not good, not good. That is always the motivator. The motivator is money, power, influence. That's what they're looking for. And Van Jones has a lot of it, more so than you could possibly imagine. We'll continue.
Showed the sibling perfectly fine. That child had a genetic issue. It was not being starved by Israel. Right. So when you have the mainstream media that is falling for propaganda or promoting propaganda and won't apologize, and then you have this fringe media that's massively bigger, it requires a different approach to the information war.
This is literally about democracies as we know them. We have to make sure that we verify everything that we see online and don't get hooked into this dopamine addiction that is going to damage us all. Thank you so much, Van.
Yeah. And Van likes them snow bunnies. Who's to say that he ain't making some moves on Miss Tishby? Don't forget, and again, she's not my type. Savetsky ain't my type. But some people have that type. Some people just really like a certain type. And maybe that's what's drawn him in. Maybe that's what's drawn in a lot of people. And again, I'm not here to say that she's that good to look at. That's what we're saying, David. What dirt is there? Because it would appear that there's a lot under his fingernails. There's no two ways about it. And it turns out that Van Jones, well, it appears that he has benefited mightily in a very profound way economically because he plays ball. I don't know why that is the case. It shouldn't be. But it also speaks to why this is happening. Like and share, guys, if you can. We're trying to get to 500 live viewers. We're crawling up there. We're at 462 as we speak. So let's keep pushing if we can. Appreciate you all. Van Jones, he's one of many. But Van Jones, there's an interesting discovery that I made, and I'm going to try to pull this up again. Let me see if I can drop the link here. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, I think I got it now. There we go. All right. So I'm going to show you all exactly what Van Jones has been up to and why he may very well be doing what he's doing. For how long, I can't say. But I can tell you that this is definitely a reason, if there is a reason, why he's doing this. When we're talking this type of money, and this is serious money, mind you, this can easily explain why he's doing what he's doing. He has a company, Wisdom Ventures. He is the co-founder and president. Now, you might be asking yourself, what exactly does Wisdom Ventures do? I was wondering the same thing. Why would Van Jones be doing anything related to AI? What the fuck does he know about AI? Nothing. But he knows how to start a company, and he knows how to get it funded by the PayPal mafia, led by Reid Hoffman and David Ellison. So there you go. Van Jones has we'll just call it a dummy company. I think that's probably the most appropriate way to describe it, because Lord knows they don't do anything of value. But Van Jones has a company that is being funded and curated by the most powerful Zionists in the world. And this company has been given a lot of money. Heck, you don't bring on Reid Hoffman and David Ellison unless it's going to basically be a massive undertaking. And who knows if they do any real work. But Van Jones is a rich man. And he is a rich man because of the very people that want the Greater Israel Project to succeed and the decimation of our nation in the process. He has truly sold us out. So when you see him making AI videos with a Israel lobby handler, Noah Tishby, there's a reason he's doing it. There's certain levels on the economic ladder. We're working on it. We're working on it. Don't worry, Pepe. We're working on it. There is certain layers that go into this entire process. The layers, as you can see, work in many different ways. So what's $20, $30 million from these guys? Nothing. But they get a black spokesperson for their cause. And in their minds, it's worth it. That's the whole point. If the juice is worth the squeeze, they'll do it. For now, Van Jones is a great foot soldier, and he's doing his job. And in many respects, he's doing it admirably. And this is, in so many ways, everything about this system. When you have a certain level of concentrated wealth and you can bring all of these elements together in one fell swoop, what do you get? You get an entire system that is basically under the thumb of the will of the very people who are at the very top. That's it. And if they decide that this is how they want to play it, then that's how they're going to do it. And they're going to get exactly what they want. And nothing is going to stop them. Because if Van Jones is not taking the money, you will get somebody else that will. That type of money is almost impossible to say no to. And Van he's a bad one because he pretends like he cares. Like I said, I would much rather deal with people that are just front and center about their abhorrent behavior. I don't want to have to guess about where certain people stand on issues. In the case of Van Jones, I mean, I don't know at this point if he's fooling anybody. Probably not. But it still is a conversation that you have to have. But if anybody is wondering, what is the motivator? How did Van Jones get where he is? And why is he being pumped up the way that he's been for so long? It's obvious now what it actually is. The reality is pretty clear. He has been pumped up because he plays ball, and he's going to keep playing ball. AI company makes him rich. Whatever you want me to say about Israel, I'll say it. And that's it. It's not that complicated. What is unfortunate is that there are people who still want to pretend like this is not the end of empire, that this is not how these systems fall apart. They will always fall apart because they are never going to let go. It is within the failure of human nature to allow this to continue. And don't think for a second that the people who have the real power, like the Ellisons, don't think for a second that they don't know what's going on outside the gates. They do. They have people that share thoughts with them. They let them know exactly where the people are at. And they know that the public is getting restless, that they don't want to deal with them anymore. Who the fuck would? That's the real problem. Again, he should be. But again, you think he's the only one? They have more than enough money to go around to do these things. And this is why we cannot get hypercritical, even though we probably have a pretty good idea of where the elections are going to go in the not too distant future. We have to be reasonable about who we break bread with. When I think of somebody like Tucker Carlson, who is conducting himself like a class traitor, a very rare situation, that doesn't mean that you automatically capitulate to somebody like Tucker and just take everything at face value. You always have to be on guard that perhaps at some point it could fall apart. But to his credit, Tucker has been doing extraordinary work. So extraordinary, in fact, that he's doing more work than most people in any type of left populist politics are doing. But I want to highlight for you guys, very important here. He has drawn attention to a very important story, a story that has not been addressed in quite some time. And I want to make sure that we get his name right, because it is a Middle Eastern name, but this is an American citizen we're talking about here. And so the person in question is Saifullah Musalet. Saifullah Musalet is an American citizen born and raised in Florida, of course, and was beaten to death by Israeli soldiers. Tucker sat down and interviewed his father.
the director of the FBI say. I was listening to him not long ago, and this thing popped up. He said, this is his exact words: if you kill an American citizen in an act of terrorism, we will hunt you down, we will bring you to justice, and you will face justice here in America. And Mike Huckabee called it a criminal and terrorist act. So, like, why is my son different?
Because he's not chosen. And let's be clear, by chosen, we mean he's not economically chosen. The Jewish Zionists are. And we're going to get to the Jewish Zionists versus the Christian Zionists very shortly. But just remember, the choices are made well in advance. And this is a prime example of just that. You didn't do anything wrong. But your son deserves justice. And so we will do what we can to bring attention to this story, which is not getting enough attention.
Than any other American. If it was any other place in the world, Tucker, that a mob, beats an American citizen to death in a foreign country, what would be the outcry of it? Would they not send authorities from the U.S. to investigate it? Why is my son different in this situation? Like, it just doesn't make sense, I didn't get a call from Rick Scott. I didn't get a call from DeSantis.
That man, as you just saw, is called Kamal Moussalet. You will hear him describe his efforts to get the attention of his own U.S. Senator, Rick Scott of Florida. Now, keep in mind, Kamal Moussalet is from Florida. He grew up in Clewiston, Florida, right near Lake Okeechobee. He's not some foreigner. He's an American citizen, and has always been. His family, his parents were American citizens. And of course, his son, now gone, was an American citizen too. Rick Scott is the Republican senator who represents him. And yet Rick Scott has refused to meet with him.
The only politician in the state of Florida that is worse than Debbie Wasserman Schultz is Rick Scott. That's only because he's on a much grander scale than she is. Rick Scott is the richest man in politics. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He lives in a mansion on one of the most expensive roads in the country, right on the Gulf in Naples. I've seen his home. Might as well be Billionaires Row where they are. You cannot have representation at any level in this country, especially at the state level, by somebody who not only is the richest, but it was through ill-gotten gains. Remember, he's a Medicare fraudster, which means he's a mass murderer. He made his money through the blood of innocent people. Many times you see certain, let's say, you have, for example, the American Greed episodes. And there was one that really stood out to me. It was a doctor who was providing cancer medication. And you know what he did? He diluted the medication for the purpose of extracting greater profit. He ended up killing 8 of his patients. He went to prison for the rest of his life. Rightfully so. And even that's not enough. But Rick Scott, because of his position, was able to take the Fifth Amendment 75 times during a deposition, and nothing ever happened to him. And today, he's in one of the most important political positions in the United States. He is a U.S. senator from the 3rd most populous state. He is in control of an infinite number of different resources, infrastructures. He's as powerful as it gets. And yet, nothing ever happens. And he is a lapdog for Israel. Which again also speaks to what are in Rick Scott's closets. What is it that we don't know about that he's into? So in the case of a Palestinian American who is a Floridian, who was murdered by a gang of psychopathic thugs, and the senator does nothing, we all have an obligation to draw attention to this story. And it does draw a lot of attention, so much so that it actually causes a little bit of concern on the part of another Israel lobby handler. We'll get to that shortly, but Tucker and this gentleman's father has a little bit more to say.
Rick Scott is always welcome on this show to explain why. Consider this an official invitation to Senator Scott. But keep in mind as you listen to this, that his representative in the United States Senate, Rick Scott, has refused to meet with him or do anything to affect justice in this case. The killers of his son remain unpunished. Rick Scott, the Republican senator from Florida, will not meet with you after your son, an American citizen and Florida resident, was murdered in a foreign country?
We've tried to do direct meetings with him. I think they wanted us to meet with their staff or so forth. I wanted I wanted to meet him directly. I went to DC. I met with many senators. Why not my senator? My Floridian senator.
So I just want to say that again, Rick Scott, and the phone number for his office is on the internet. Encourage everyone to look it up and give the office a call. Rick Scott, the Republican senator from Florida, will not meet with his own constituent whose son was murdered in a foreign country. That, you think like the USS Liberty could never happen now, that American leaders would never tolerate their own people being killed by a foreign country. They'd never cover up on behalf of a foreign power when Americans are murdered. But clearly it is happening.
For those of you who follow Z Squirrel on X, one of my favorite accounts to follow by far, and also shout out to Brianna Joy Gray. Tucker Carlson should be appreciated and celebrated for the great work he's been doing, but that doesn't mean he should be trusted. There is always the possibility that the carpet's going to get yanked out. He's going to revert back to his old ways when push comes to shove, and will eventually get behind J.D. Vance. Now, I hope he proves us wrong. I really do. That is yet to be determined, but having the guard up is very important at the same time. It does not warrant an immediate trust, but the work he's doing, it matters. And he's right. And Rick Scott is an evil bastard, the worst I've seen in Florida. Yes, even worse than Debbie Wasserman Schultz, if that's possible. But they're both equally evil. He just happens to be at the macro level because he is a senator. The U.S. Senate is considered the most powerful legislative body in the world. And he's arguably the most connected of them all. To be able to get away with what he got away with, and he wasn't brought to justice, is it any surprise that he holds such contempt for regular people? It shouldn't surprise anybody. So this story is a great example, and also credit where credit's due to Tucker for addressing the USS Liberty. Just as he said, do you really think it couldn't happen today? Who's to say it hasn't happened already? Who knows what the hell is going on in the Strait of Hormuz? We are under the cover of night. We don't get to see what's going on with our service members. And under these circumstances, as I said, you know what? There is an argument to be made about the Senate, especially since the Senate does not represent the population properly. The House, at least to some degree, does. And even that's up for debate. But the Senate, again, you're going to tell me that the power of Rick Scott as the U.S. Senator from Florida, along with Ashley Moody, is not more powerful than, I mean, you pick him. Angus King from Maine? Of course he's more powerful. He's more powerful than Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota. And he chooses to use his power in the worst way possible. Randy Fine doesn't make the list yet because he hasn't been there long enough to do as much damage, but he's going to try. I can assure you he will. Now, why is this so bad for the powers that be? Now, I know everybody can assume that, you know, Tucker cannot change. And again, Tucker has already come out and said that he would like to see Thomas Massie run for president. We'll see. There has been suggestions that Tucker's going to do it himself. We will see. If it does not involve capitulating to J.D. Vance and, in this case, Peter Thiel and obviously Alex Karp, that's a whole other story. But I will tell you that when a video like this surfaces, and it was put out there again today by the schmuckwad himself, he has something to say to Tucker Carlson and the efforts he's been putting forward right now.
Be clear. For thousands of years, we Jews have developed an insidious mental construct that we need to be loved. We need everyone to like us. Now, that would be nice. Machiavelli said 500 years ago in Florence that you should want to be loved and feared. But if you have to choose, and October 7th has forced us to choose, then you need to choose being feared over being loved. The Jewish people have to be feared. Hamas has to fear the IDF. Hezbollah and disgusting, poisonous, reptilian Iran has to fear the Mossad. Just think about this for a moment. When Israel goes in the heart of Tehran and kills Ismail Haniyeh, and I feel really bad for him, because if I had $4 billion, I wish I could have lived longer and like bought more hot tubs and more, Gulfstream 6s and all that wasted money now, which his children are now suing Erdogan for. When you do that in the heart of Tehran, what do you think Khamenei himself is thinking? He's thinking, uh-oh, I'm next. These Jews actually fight back. The same thing is true in media. Why aren't we going after the Candace Owens of the world, the most disgusting reptilian anti-Semite in America? Why aren't we going after Roger Waters? Why aren't we going after Tucker Carlson?
Now, what you have to remember when he says things like this, the signal is being, the bat signal, if you will, is being thrown out there to basically say, if anybody wants to take a shot, take a shot. We'll back you up. We'll protect you. He's just saying, I'm just saying, I didn't tell people to go out there and do it, but I'm just saying we should not have to listen to people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson because they're evil. They're bad people. Their minds are not right. They hate the Jews. We have to correct them, like Charlie Kirk. And if we can't correct them, maybe we just need to get rid of them. And that is what he's saying. That is effectively what he's saying. And anyone with half a brain would know that that's what he's saying. And when you are in a protected class, which he is, kind of like Noah Tishby, you can get away with this. You can say these most insanely outlandish, reprehensible things about people and putting them in harm's way. That's just what is on paper. Remember, a lot of times you don't even have a clue as to how much these people are actually worth because so much of their money can't even be seen. Who knows how many homes he has? The guy's able to travel to Iceland anytime he wants, right? I wonder where his next destination is going to be. Let's keep an eye out for that one because I'm sure we'll be hearing about it. But he's got more to say.
President Trump, who spoke here at the IAC the other day, is the most pro-Israel president in American history. What the heck is he doing with Tucker Carlson in his ear? Tucker Carlson's a Holocaust denier. Tucker Carlson just had a historian on, 42 million people watched it, who said the Holocaust, you know, he's not a Holocaust denier. He admits that 6 million Jews died, but it wasn't a program of genocide. They were like prisoners of war. They died of disease. Cut the crap and stop desecrating the memory of our 6 million. And no American president, whether it's Biden or George Bush or greatest president for Israel, Trump, should be having people like that. And we have to go after the Tucker Carlsons of this world. I am tired of being a scared Jew. I am tired of quaking and shivering and
You know, I have to say, that may be the first ounce of truth that's ever come out of this troll's mouth. Let's hear it one more time.
President for Israel, Trump, should be having people like that. And we have to go after the Tucker Carlsons of this world. I am tired of being a scared Jew. I am tired of quaking and shivering and
You haven't shivered or quaked or shit yourself enough times just yet. But it will happen. And it's going to happen sooner than you think. I am not sure. I hope I'm wrong. Because there are people who unfortunately are going to get away with this. But maybe Schmuckwad won't. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm Tucker Carlson, if I'm Candace Owens, that sounds like a death threat to me. Yeah. He really should be afraid. He's actually speaking truth here. Maybe not as he was intending to say it, but there is no question that he's letting it fly.
trembling before our enemies. We are going to bring the fight to our enemies.
Yeah, he's bringing that fight all right. As I said, if you are Tucker Carlson, if you are Candace Owens, or anybody else, heck, even us, who's to say that we're not on his radar? I mean, we're on Jigsaw Loomer's radar. Got her attention. We got that thing's attention, excuse me. Maybe the troll's attention is next. For so very long, people have been afraid to speak up and speak out. But maybe that's what's actually changing. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the evolution. So here's hoping, against all hope, that this is all but temporary. What else do you have if you don't have hope? We can hope, against all hope, that this Zio ideology will eventually collapse under its own weight, because the people will continue to rise up, continue to speak out, and the likes of Rabbi Shmuley will meet their fate a lot sooner than they think. Here's hoping. Now, I want to also be very clear about one particular aspect of these stories that we cover. In many ways, we are guilty of our own shortcomings about what we cover when it comes to Christian Zionism. And Christian Zionism is a big part of this ideology, and we cannot ignore it. While Shmuley does his thing, I want us to also keep in mind that as we have discussed Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, the interesting aspect that we are faced with right now regarding the Tyler Robinson case against Charlie Kirk is that Christian Zionism has been a mainstay in a much grander scale in terms of the flock. I have said Jewish Zionists provide the money, stereotypical as it may be, but in many ways it's true. And Christian Zionists provide the flock. The numbers speak for themselves. And one of the significant differences between Christian Zionism and Jewish Zionism is that Christian Zionism is based on evangelism, the evangelical church, and the condemnation of your soul if you do not accept Israel and its chosen people. Much more religious-based. We've had Casey Malone on the show. She talked about what it was like growing up in the evangelical church in Oklahoma. I'm sure there are people here that are either from the heartland or the South that can speak to that as well, what that experience was like. Now, if there is a person, Christians tricked by Zionists, yeah, you could call it that too, which is why I'm not convinced that they are salvageable in a way that Jewish Zionists are not. Remember, Jewish Zionism is ideological. Christian Zionism is religious-based. There's a big difference there. Now, in many cases, people can't get out from under that. But a lot of them are trying to. And what we've learned, especially when it comes to Christian Zionism, is that in their own way, I'm not talking about the flock. I'm not talking about the congregants. I'm talking about the pastors. So much of what they do is also based on money and power. And one of those people that came to the forefront regarding Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. Now, we're not talking about Mr. McCoy here, because again, it's not just one pastor. There are thousands upon thousands. Some of you might remember Frank Turek. Now, this is a man who uses his Christian Zionism to create a whole different image of what Charlie Kirk was, who Tyler Robinson is. I know some of you wanted me to address Nick Fuentes tonight. I'm not going to do it. He is such a fed. He is so far gone at this point, and everybody knows he's a joke, but not everybody knows about Frank Turek. Here's Frank Turek.
It degrades something good. And that's what Satan does. In fact, what did
Satan?
What did the apostles and Jesus call Satan? He's a murderer, a liar, an accuser, a slanderer who wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Charlie was murdered. What have we had since then? Lies, accusations, and slander seeking to kill, steal, and destroy. Or steal, kill, and destroy. This is spiritual warfare. This is demonic activity. Yeah, I'm talking about Candace Owens. Yeah, it's...
He's talking about Candace Owens. And when they talk in these terms, we know what he's alluding to. It's very much like Rabbi Shmuley. The hope is that somebody within the ranks will lose their mind and go out and do the deed. And that's what they're hoping for. They will say, oh, it's not what we asked for. No, it isn't what they asked for, but it's what they're going to get because that's what they want. And what is the biggest motivator, ladies and gentlemen? What is the biggest motivator behind these Christian Zionist pastors, philosophers? What is their motivation? Their motivation is money and power. And Candace Owens is getting in the way of that money and power. They can't have that. That's why they have to create a patsy, and they have to go to such lengths to try to convince you that this is the case. I've got another person to get to in a minute, but you're going to see why. When the tentacles run as deep as they do, because there's so much money to go around within the Zionist class, particularly because of the, as we showed you just a little while ago, the billionaire ruling class makes the decisions here. And this is no different. Give a guy like Frank Turek some money, he'll do what he's told. Why else would he be doing this? We'll continue.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You don't accuse people of murder without evidence, but that's what she's doing left and right. She's insinuating it left and right. That's evil. In fact, in the Old Testament, Exodus 22:22 says that if you abused a widow or the fatherless, God says, I will hunt you down and kill you with the sword.
So now this knight in shining armor is coming to the defense of Erica Kirk and saying that you should be struck down with a sword for daring to question a widow and whether or not she may or may not have been involved in the demise of her husband because, you know, she does happen to come from a family with ties to intelligence. And that she's got many different stories that she can't keep straight. Again, I don't even really pay attention to Erica Kirk. But it's guys like this who continue to make her part of the story. I think in many ways she was simply opportunistic. She got what she wanted out of it, and she benefited mightily as a result. You saw how much money TPUSA brought in shortly after his assassination. Now, that money's not going to last because people are not going to prop it up. I mean, they will. I mean, the Zionist brigade will prop it up for maybe a couple of more years. But if they don't produce at the ballot, at the ballot boxes they are expecting them to, then it won't matter. They'll have to find a new path. But for the time being, they're swimming in that loot. But Candace keeps exposing it. And in the end, Christian Zionists like Frank Turek, they want to see her get cut up in more ways than one.
Deuteronomy 19 in the Old Testament economy says, if you accuse somebody falsely of a crime and you're found out, you get the penalty of that crime. So if you falsely accuse someone of murder and you're found out, you're the one executed. Wow. If we had those laws today, it would shut down the internet, wouldn't it? Because all we do is we have people accusing other people, insinuating innocent people are guilty for a crime they never committed without evidence. By the way, that's why you need two witnesses in the Bible, right? You need evidence. You don't falsely accuse people. So this is what evil does. It degrades, it slanders, it accuses, it lies.
The only liar here is you, Frank Turek. You're lying for the shekels, your 30 pieces of silver. Why don't you read your Bible? Because you got Judas written all over you in every nook and cranny that is this grift. Like I said, there is a percentage of the population, I've heard 4%, my guess is especially today is probably higher, that people fall under that category of either narcissistic personality disorder, sociopathic behavior, or psychopathy. And perhaps Turek is all of them. But again, here's a person who purposely quotes the Bible to use it for evil. The other irony is invoking Jesus' name as it was never intended. Jesus was for the poor, the working class, the downtrodden, the forgotten. He wasn't for the kings and queens and the knights of the round table and the noblemen. That's not who he was. But Christian Zionism has turned that on its head. And we've seen what happens for the purpose of profit that they will use it for. But this is only coming in light of what, and again, in many ways it is. Now, that doesn't mean that believing in God is wrong. But if you look at organized religion and you think that there's anything rational or reasonable, especially today with the way it's conducted, in the full denial of the existence of science and the size and scope of the universe, you would actually get somewhere if you believed or preached that your God is the God of the world that you inhabit here in this, we'll say, solar system that is the sun and its 9 planets. Do you know how far away the nearest possible planet in the universe exists that could have life on it? 4.25 light years away. You know how long it'll take to reach that planet based on the Voyager satellite that is floating through space? By the way, in case you don't know, the Voyager moves through space at about 38,000 miles an hour. And at that speed, we will get to that potential planet with life in 73,000 years. So when we say that religion is in many ways a hoax, this is why. It's meant to control people. It is not meant to be realistic or logical. And Mr. Turek, front and center, total grifting bastard who is, much like Rabbi Shmuley, trying to get Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens killed. And believe me when I tell you, they are hoping that they are met with an unfortunate accident. Because when the gravy train disappears, they'll have nowhere to go. So here's hoping that it does. But he's not the only one. Now, I want to bring this up because some of you may know who Mike Sartain is. Some of you may be familiar with the manosphere. I always find it interesting when people who don't know jack shit from Shinola, when it comes to things like murder trials, voices an opinion that is so off the wall that the only way that you could come up with this opinion is if you, as an influencer, are being paid by the Israel lobby as well.
Who had a trans boyfriend, didn't like Charlie Kirk and shot him, is not like, it's not some ridiculous stretch of imagination. It really isn't. If Candace Owens had some way to blame the Jews and the gays at the same time, she would have figured out a way to do it. But she can.
This is exactly why, when you wonder why certain channels get pumped up, why they get so much traction, so much volume, there's a reason that it's happening. Because they're willing to put out shit like this. Mike Sartain is a wannabe Andrew Tate. He is another one of those manosphere gurus who tries to sell his lifestyle to men who, let's just say, are not very successful in the woman department. He's one of those guys. So naturally, he has to have an opinion about Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson. See the connection here? The connection's easy. He's paid to sell an ideology, and with it, his algorithm gets pumped up. Doesn't make any sense on the surface, because who the hell is he? But when you have so much money and power to go around, you'll give anybody anything if it helps your cause, for however much longer it will last. That's why Mike is spewing this nonsense, but he's got a hell of a lot more to say.
Only pick one. That's essentially what she did. You're saying that's not the motivation for him to do this? That is wild to me. That is wild to me that you think that this is so confusing. I don't understand. I'm not saying he was even really that hateful towards trans people. It's just that his clips where he was debunking trans ideology went more viral than anyone else's clips at the time of his death. I don't think anybody would dispute that. What I'm saying is, if you are a trans or LGBT person and you're angry at people who are anti-trans or anti-LGBT, who was the face of that movement when Charlie Kirk died? It was Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
So the idea that this isn't a motive is maddening to me. So what I'm saying is, if that was a possible motive to choose, then it makes more sense that this person who was kind of like, again, the Osama bin Laden of the anti-trans community, he's there, he's in front of you, you're in Utah, he's in Utah. That's the point. This idea of what I said, I'm not saying this proves he's guilty. What I'm saying is the idea that what I just stated is so out of bounds. It's like talking about aliens or something.
You know what never came up in that conversation with Mike Sartain? That Charlie Kirk's opinion about Israel changed to the point in which he had to have a sit down, you know, kind of like in the mafia, where you have a sit down with the family and you have a talking to. And sometimes you don't even get the sit down. You get called, you get summoned for a sit down, and then you get killed on the way there. But he didn't get killed on the way there. He actually had the sit down with the likes of Bill Ackman and Josh Hammer. And he had to talk. And they told him what was up. And then the next thing you know, he has a private conversation through text with Candace Owens indicating that this went down and he doesn't care anymore. He's going max. Well, he did. And then he was dead. But there's no connection there. In fact, there's nothing to even look at. Let's not even bring it up. And when you find out that guys like this are being paid, don't say I didn't warn you, because it's too obvious at this point what is going on here. Realistically, they're going to try to drag this out for as long as they can. But it won't work. Just never forget the people who decided to take the shekels, the 7,000 post, as we've referred to it. Don't forget them. There will come a time where they will pretend that they had nothing to do with this. And we must not allow them to skate, because that's what they're hoping they'll be able to do. Oh, I was totally against this from day one. I was never interested in any of the bullshit that they said about Israel. I always thought Israel was the bad guy. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You always knew. And there are no excuses now. I've told this story, you know, you guys, I've mentioned it before. I lost my job because of Jigsaw Loomer. Well, there was an opportunity recently on an investment project that I was working on. And I had to make a conscious decision about whether or not I was going to move forward with somebody who was interested in working together. But then his name came up on my Facebook friends suggestion. And he has an Israel flag on his profile picture. Right now, today, on his profile picture, he's displaying the Israel flag. Well, needless to say, that was the end of that relationship. I will never communicate with him again. And that's my decision. And I am potentially giving up a lot of money by not engaging him. I have to live with myself, as do a lot of others. We have to make conscious decisions about whether or not what we're doing is right or wrong. I am not perfect by any stretch. Nobody is. But I strive to be the best person that I can be. And when I say that I care about humanity, I mean it. The people here that do this, they don't give a shit about it. They care about their own personal gain. If you can take on that personal gain by spilling Palestinian children's blood, okay. Just understand that you're an animal and you will never be forgiven. Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to bring this all full circle in one shot. We've got one more segment to do, but I want you all to see in almost perfect capture, what Christian Zionism, and here's how I will describe this little exchange. This is what happens when a Jewish Zionist meets a Christian Zionist in public.
I think for my son's never seen someone who proselytizes.
Come again?
My son's never seen someone proselytize.
Well, you have a difference between proselytizing and preaching. So I'm preaching the word of God, and God's word goes forth, and it doesn't return unto him void. So we're commanded in Scripture to go in all the world and preach the gospel. And so...
And the gospel prays to Jesus, correct?
Come again? I didn't hear you.
The gospel prays to Jesus?
The gospel prays to Jesus?
Yes. Is this for Jesus? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jesus Christ truly bore me again and saved my soul.
Oh, no, because I'm a Jew, and you're praying to a devout Jew, and we just find that absolutely idiotic.
So the Taekwondo suburbanite mom has an opinion about the Christian preacher in the street. But you know what the amazing thing is about these two people, ladies and gentlemen? They probably both love Israel very much. Remember, there is a part of the evangelical church, the Christian Zionist movement. They want all the Jews in Israel so that the rapture can happen and that the Jews can be probably either. Well, I think what it is they have to be there for the rapture, and then it's on their day of judgment. By doing so, they have to choose. Do they accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, or are they going to burn in hell? And guys, right now, we are at the highest point of our viewership tonight. So if you haven't yet, smash that like button. I got it right. Nope, nothing ain't the button. That's not the right one. There we go. Smash it if you can, guys. Really appreciate it. Here you have a woman who is chastising a man who's in the streets preaching the gospel. Why don't you just walk away? Why do you feel the need to have to engage him? That kind of seems kind of stupid. Talk about a waste of time. But when you feel entitled, as many Zionists do, you get this.
Like, just so dumb. Well, that's why he came into his own received him not.
No, he did.
And that's exactly what he did. Yeah.
Really
could I show you in the Word of God? Your Messiah? This is
bullshit because they wrote
You're
this 50 to 60
Is that what a Jew would say?
After he was dead.
Is that what a Jew would say? No filthy communication proceed forth out of your mouth. So you honor God with your lips, with your heart.
You know, if you didn't know any better, you would think it was a couple of homeless people arguing with one another. Here's what I know. I live my life by the golden rule. And that's it. Do unto others as you would have done to you. That is the safest path to salvation if it exists. But as we've seen this evening, when you have rabbis saying, in the Lord's name, death to all of Gaza, when you have Christian Zionists saying, more or less, kill Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and then you have this little tizzy of an argument on the streets, are you getting it yet that maybe religion is kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? That the faith you seek, whether it's Jesus, Muhammad, or the Lord himself, whoever, there's no proof. That's why we call it faith. And the best you can do is preach it to yourself. If others want to follow, that's their business. But remember, almost universally, the reason this is an issue is because there is a lot of money and there is a lot of power to be had. And that is everything about Zionism and what the movement represents and has always represented. It has nothing to do with faith, and it never did. And the sooner you come to terms with that, and the sooner people recognize that, is the sooner we save ourselves. If we still can. If you have enjoyed this conversation this evening, which we certainly hope that you have, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite heavily suppressed, yet still growing channel. I don't know why that logo won't pop up. Come on now. There it is. And let's do that one more time. Patreon.com/revolutionary change. We do have one more segment to get to this evening, guys, so don't leave just yet. But I do want to get to our super chatters. Sonia and Archie with the $1.99. Happy Saturday night to all my revolutionaries. We really appreciate you being here. Jim Talib with the $5. Always a pleasure, my friend. TDB21 with the $9.99. You and Jed should be political consultants to progressive independent candidates that you believe in. You're very knowledgeable about the game, a side gig that keeps you on mission. I'm not opposed to that. Honestly, we're also happy to just share our knowledge as we can, because in the end, that's really why we're doing what we're doing. You know, there is a mission here. Now, if people think that our opinions or, insight is valuable, we certainly are happy to be compensated. But this is also the problem with doing politics with populist left candidates. Very often they have very little money to go around because their cause goes directly against the powers that be and what they want. So naturally getting funded is hard. What was that? Don't flash that and I can't read it. Pete, why do you never get supers on your chat? Are they not allowed? I'm not sure I understand what you mean, Amanda. I need you to be more specific about that. And Long Meadow with the $1 Rumble rant. Appreciate everyone at Revolutionary Change. Keep speaking up and being a voice for the voiceless. We appreciate you being here also, guys. And keep in mind, we are also live on Rumble, Facebook, Twitch, X, Instagram, Revolutionary Change on all of those channels. Support us there if you can. New York City Big Apple with the $20 super sticker. Thank you very, very much for your support. I always find it interesting when we get a big contribution and there's no commentary. It's just, we just love you. We want to give you some money. Here you go. Thank you very much. Libertarian Social Dem with the $1.99. Were you surprised of Michael Cohen kissing the ring? Nothing surprises me in this day and age, my friend. Nothing. Tates, 4242 with the $2. Pete, we love you because you have such a good heart. Thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate it. I am Thor. Been a member for a month. The hope of the revolution. We are all Thor. Hey, that's, we could use one hell of a hammer smash at this point, especially to the establishment. We're working on it. Pirate Justin with the $2. I fell asleep. Here's my late fee. We always appreciate the tips. We dance for the tips, baby. And $2 again. Purple Hair Peter is back. Shabbat Shalom, y'all. No, it's Daddy's home. Shabbat Shalom. You got to get it right. I am Thor with the $1.99. Take the deal, Donald.org. That sounds, I think I know what you're referring to, and I think he probably should. I am Thor with the $4.99 again. I leave for DC in 3 weeks. Are you sure you don't want to interview me before I leave? I can do it. Some bodies rule the world and nobody's change it. I'm not sure what you mean, but I appreciate the offer. I'm not even sure what you would be looking to talk about or why you would be coming on. Again, we love everybody and we want to give everybody a fair shake, but this is always the hard part sometimes about doing the show. There has to be a connection and you know what we're here to talk about. So send an email, admin@revolutionarychangenow.com to Rachel. Let us know. We'll see what we can do. Tony, it's always a pleasure, brother. Thank you for the $2. Van Jones will be a coward until the end. Yes, he will. And you know what the truth is about Van Jones? Van Jones is going to be one of the first people, I guarantee it. Van Jones is going to be one of the first people who's going to come out and say that he was on the side of the Palestinians from the very beginning. I was for the two-state solution, blah, 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 blah. That's what's going to happen. You watch. Van Jones is going to be one of the biggest, quickest turners when the tide has moved in the direction that he feels safe moving in it. Van Jones, from Pirate Justin with the $2, Van Jones is a Schwartz guy, free Palestine. I see what you did there. May the Schwartz be with you too. 0744 Pete with the $10. Good episode. I'm glad you're liking it, my friend. Spoon Spooky with the 199 pounds. Always learning from your courage. Greetings from overseas. Stay well in the UK, my friend. And finally, Skedward Bobby with the 10 Canadian A. All the best. Appreciate you, my friend. So we've got one final topic to cover this evening. Save the best for last. Please stop doing that. Stop. Thank you. Those of you who've heard me talk about my political philosophy, my ideology, I have a lot of libertarian in me. Libertarianism has one universal principle that anyone who subscribes to any type of its ideology understands what its founding principle is. No taxation without representation. That's libertarianism in a nutshell. We live in a country where there is no representation for our taxation. We have no say at all in what we get. And so what I find interesting is that libertarianism has been denigrated to such an extent that people have different ideas about what it really means. And in the end, everything comes back to Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand was a guest on Phil Donahue's talk show back in 1979, shortly after the Ayatollah took over in Iran. Now, you'd be asking yourself, what does Ayn Rand have to do with any of this? Ayn Rand's philosophy, which is supposed to be the libertarian philosophy, led by the likes of Thomas Massey, is that no taxation without representation, especially when it comes to foreign policy. Now, listen carefully to what Ayn Rand says here during this interview.
Is against. I'd like to know your opinion on the United States' foreign policy and what is happening in the Middle East right now.
Right now, I'm not sure we know what's happening. I think the United States foreign policy has been disgraceful for years, for decades. I would say roughly since the New Deal, and in part even before that. But if you mean whose side should one be on, Israel or the Arabs, I would certainly say Israel.
Of course. Ayn Rand is Jewish, by the way. Now, on the one hand, she's right. And this is 1979. So you're talking about the Cold War, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Korea, now Iran. And this is going back to those years. So on the first hand, on the one hand, she is correct. U.S. foreign policy is a disaster. But then the true colors are shown. Israel or the Arabs. Of course, I pick Israel. This is after 1967. This is after 1973. This is after the USS Liberty. This is before the first Intifada. But we all know where this was going. And if you subscribe to any form of libertarianism, you know that if there is an antithesis of the libertarian ideology, it's Israel and everything it stands for. And this is supposed to be the golden child of libertarianism. Ironic, isn't it? Israel exposes all. I will not bring myself to watch that movie, but I am forever grateful for that person who confronted Helen Mirren and called her the Zionist scum that she is. Bravo.
Because it's the advanced, technological, civilized country amidst a group of almost totally primitive savages.
Okay, so there you go. Zionist Judaism in its fullest form. we talk about Israel and their advancements in technology and investment and things we do there. And these other people are savages, animals, dirty, primitive. We can do away with them, you know. Anyone here? You see, the real godfather of libertarianism is Ron Paul, not Rand Paul. Rand Paul sold out a long time ago. You've got Ron Paul, you have Thomas Massey. Those are the standard bearers. Everything that she wrote in Atlas Shrugged, throw it all away. All of it. Doesn't mean anything anymore. She gave away, in a matter of seconds, she gave away the entire game. You all wasted your fucking time believing that this was real. This is who she really is, and this is what they really believe. No questions asked.
Who have not changed for years and who are racist and who resent Israel because it's bringing industry and intelligence, modern technology into their stagnation.
Your philosophy of objectivism.
That's right.
I just have one point that I think should be made, Ms. Rand, with time fleeting here. Your characterization of the situation in the Middle East came down rather gratuitously and in a very angry way on the Arabs, and without discussing the merits of either side in a most complicated and painful collision of cultures and peoples in our world. Why couldn't the millions of men, women, and children who are Arab and who find themselves in this desperate conflict and look around wondering where peace will be, why can't they be angry with you for your characterization of them, your slap at them, your roundhouse criticism of them, when you don't seem to be able to tolerate a questioner who suggests that she disagrees with you?
Now, maybe it's because I'm Irish, but my God, if there was one talk show host, particularly in the 1980s, that really stood above the rest, it was Phil Donahue. He really was great. And he was even greater when he got his show on MSDNC. When he spoke out against the war in Iraq, you know what they did? They fired him. This was more than a voice of reason. And let me tell you something, guys. I'm not a sappy individual, but the love story between him and his wife is definitely one of the more charming stories you'll ever see. Marlo Thomas and Phil Donahue had a real love story to celebrate. Phil was always somebody who struck me as a caring person, not an opportunist, as many other talk show hosts over the decades have proven. The biggest opportunist, of course, being Zionist extraordinaire Jerry Springer. Talk about denigrating society. But Phil really was a great guy. And if you haven't seen Phil Hartman's impression of Phil Donahue on SNL in the mid-'80s, go check that out.
Characterization is you do not accept any criticism unless you level it.
No, I don't resort to terrorism. I don't go around murdering my opponents, innocent women and children.
You know, when they say all Israelis and the entire Zionist ideology, all they do is lie, this is a prime example of just that. You don't go around murdering innocent women and children, Ayn Rand? Yes, you do. But remember, in her mind, Arabs, they're goy. They're subhuman. They don't count. All right, so we killed 1,000 subhumans. Not a big deal. We killed 100,000 subhumans. We killed millions of subhumans. And you're right, Krista. He wouldn't be allowed on TV today. No chance. Listen to her one more time.
I don't resort to terrorism. I don't go around murdering my opponents, innocent women and children. That is what I have against the Arabs. That takes the conflict out of the sphere of civilized conflict and makes it murderous. And anyone, private citizens, who resort to force is a monster. And that's what makes me condemn and despise them.
It's always the Ashkenazis. Eastern European Russian. It's always the same thing. It's the same story. And for every libertarian who bows at the altar of this animal, of a dead human, whose memory, it's so ironic. There were so many things that she talked about that had almost nothing to do with what libertarianism was all about. What she preached, which I know this is something if Steve Grumbine sees this, he'll appreciate. Ayn Rand preached austerity politics. She preached no one is entitled to anything, not even life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Does anybody doubt that she is a miserable old crone? Not just because of the way she conducted herself here, but that this is how she probably always was. An old crab ass who figured out how to write a book and make money off of it, and then all of a sudden became an economic philosopher. And let's be honest. There is a lot that she preached that ultimately Carter and especially Reagan picked up and used. She had a lot to do with it. You can't blame it on one person, but she definitely bears that level of responsibility. And for somebody who wanted to abolish Social Security, this is a person who gleefully took it. But what else is new? Say one thing, do something completely different, because that's the nature of politics. How do you know when a politician, and in this case, a Zionist, is lying? Their lips are moving, and her lips moved quite a bit, and she lied through her teeth till the very end. I want to end this show with a dose of hope. Thank you, Winnie. And I love your profile picture. Remember, anybody who's got a profile picture, anybody who wants to throw me nice compliments and at the same time has a dog or animal of any kind in their profile picture, sell it, speak it. I want to put it up there. And with that being said, let's remember that there is still good in this world, that there is still hope. And I don't want anybody walking away thinking that a positive outcome to all of the pain and suffering we've been put through emotionally, psychologically, physically, that there isn't hope or light at the end of the tunnel, because there is. What an amazing shot. Let's give a big shout out to Mohammed from Morocco, Krista from Lebanon, and Mustafa from Egypt. Told TR World they wanted to show that solidarity can take many forms. That is really cool. Even with a giant shark swimming right by them as they do it. Zio hunting commences again on Monday. I can't Zio hunt without my trusty partner in studio. So, with that being said, we do have just a few more super chatters to get to before we're out for the evening. But a big shout out to all of you guys. I sure can. Best days of your life, man. Best days of your life. I'm looking forward to going to New Jersey very soon and seeing my 2 family dogs. Can't happen soon enough. We do have a couple of more super chatters, as I mentioned, so let's give them a big shout out before we get out of here for the evening. H299. Thank you very much for the $4.99 super sticker. And Amanda Edgar from across the pond in the UK with the 10 pounds. That's actually more than $10. That's actually about, I think it's about $12 maybe. We're moving on up here, guys. You know, at the end of these shows, I often think, did we do enough tonight? Did we educate enough? Did we work hard enough? Maybe we did. I just hope that everyone who's here enjoyed it. So I ask you one last time, Mike, I have family in Central Jersey by the shore. Many of you might have heard of a town called Red Bank. My father lives close to there. Oh, and of course, I am not allowed to leave just yet because we're getting more super chatters. Mohammed Ahmed with the 1 Revolutionary Change membership gift. Thank you so very, very much. And now, Free Person with the 1 Revolutionary Change gifted membership. Thank you very much. I can't put too much stock into preseason. Everything starts when the regular season begins. The Giants, we'll see what happens with Harbaugh at the helm. We'll see if Dart is really as accurate as his name suggests. I think he's got a little bit of Johnny Manziel in him. I have some concerns. See what happens with Jen's Dolphins. Jen is definitely not in the mood to be given the business. Jeanette Villalona, love you, gal. Appreciate you being here with the $5 super sticker. You know, I don't know what to expect. I've got my family. I call it my family, but it's really my close friends. We have our family football draft, fantasy draft, and that is on, I think it's on Tuesday, actually. Not this Tuesday, the next Tuesday, September 1st. So that'll be fun. Excuse me. I want to give everybody a nice little send-off because it's obviously been a nice show tonight. We've had a great crowd, and you guys have been great. So, you know, I come here tonight, we do a show, you have a good time. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, a comment, and a share. When the live stream ends, comment, like, and share. It might get out further than before. The irony of doing this online and not in person can't be lost. So do us all a favor. If you believe in revolution, support the cause. Lord knows we all do. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday night and free Palestine. Good night, guys.